My name is Anna, and at 34 years old, I thought I had built the perfect life with my husband Mark in our beautiful colonial home in suburban Denver. Walking up our driveway that Friday evening after my business trip to Chicago, I noticed unfamiliar cars crowding our usually pristine driveway. My heart started racing as I saw my front door wide open, loud music spilling out into the quiet neighborhood. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever dealt with boundary crossing in laws, please subscribe and hit that like button. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this unfolds. Mark and I met 8 years ago at the investment firm where we both worked. He was charming in that subtle way that sneaks up on you, bringing me coffee exactly how I liked it, without ever asking, remembering small details from our conversations, and making me laugh during stressful quarterly reports. Our courtship felt like something from a romantic movie. He would leave handwritten notes on my desk, plan elaborate weekend getaways to mountain towns, and constantly told me I was the missing piece in his life. When he proposed after 18 months at sunset on Lookout Mountain, I said yes without hesitation, believing I had found my true partner. Our wedding was small and intimate, just 40 guests at a historic mansion outside the city. Mark's family seemed distant but polite enough that day. His mother Dorothy wore black to the wedding, which should have been my first real warning sign, but I dismissed it as an eccentric fashion choice. His father George barely spoke 10 words to me, spending most of the reception discussing sports with other guests. Mark's older brother Kevin showed up late with his guitar, asking if he could perform during the ceremony, even though we had already hired musicians. His younger sister Lisa brought 3 different dates throughout the day, causing confusion with the seating arrangements. Still, I told myself every family has quirks, and Mark assured me they would warm up to me with time. After the honeymoon, we purchased our dream home, a 4,000-square-foot colonial with 6 bedrooms and a 3-car garage in one of Denver's most desirable suburbs. I had just been promoted to senior analyst at the firm, and my salary alone could cover the mortgage comfortably. Mark talked excitedly about his career prospects, how he would soon match my success, and how we would build an empire together. But reality proved different. In our 5 years of marriage before this incident, Mark lost 3 different jobs. First, he was let go from the investment firm for consistently missing deadlines. Then he lost a position at a startup after 6 months for what he called personality conflicts, but what I later learned was showing up drunk to client meetings. The third job at a marketing agency ended when they discovered he had been falsifying his expense reports. Each time I supported him emotionally and financially. I paid our bills, maintained our lifestyle, and encouraged him to find his passion. He would spend months between jobs claiming he was networking or developing business ideas that never materialized. Meanwhile, I was pulling 60-hour weeks, earning promotions, and building our financial security single-handedly. Yet somehow I had convinced myself this was temporary, that he was just finding his way. The issues with his family started small and gradually escalated. Dorothy would show up unannounced on Sunday mornings, criticizing how I arranged the furniture or cooked breakfast. She once rearranged my entire spice cabinet because she claimed my system made no sense. George would borrow tools and never return them, then act offended when I asked about them. Kevin, at 36, had never held a job for more than 3 months and constantly needed loans for his music career that was perpetually about to take off. He had borrowed $8,000 over the years for equipment, studio time, and tour vans that never materialized into anything. Lisa, at 29, was a serial borrower who always had emergencies requiring immediate financial assistance. Her car broke down every other month. Her rent was always somehow short, and she perpetually needed money for courses that would finally launch her career as a makeup artist, yoga instructor, real estate agent, or whatever her latest passion was. I tried setting boundaries. I suggested holiday schedules where we would alternate between families. I proposed monthly dinners instead of random drop-ins. I even created a family loan document to track the money we were giving them, hoping it would create some accountability. Mark fought me on every single boundary, accusing me of trying to isolate him from his family. He would say things like, "Family is everything and blood comes first," making me feel like an outsider in my own marriage. The week before my Chicago trip, Mark's behavior shifted noticeably. He was suddenly interested in my schedule, asking specific questions about my flight times, hotel information, and when exactly I would return. He volunteered to drive me to the airport, which he had never done before. While I was packing, he asked strange questions about our security system, wanting to know if I had shared the code with anyone else. He inquired about spare keys, supposedly worried about emergency access. He even asked about my work files, wondering if I needed to take everything or if some could stay in the home office. I dismissed these odd behaviors as him finally taking an interest in my career and our home security. My presentation in Chicago was crucial for landing a multi-million-dollar client, and I was focused entirely on preparation. Mark seemed genuinely supportive, for once encouraging me to stay an extra day if needed to ensure the deal closed properly. He kissed me goodbye at the airport with more enthusiasm than he had shown in months, telling me to take my time and not worry about anything at home. The presentation went flawlessly. We secured the client, and my boss hinted at another promotion coming my way. I was on top of the world as my plane landed back in Denver that Friday evening. I had texted Mark about my success, but he had only responded with a brief congratulations and seemed distracted. I assumed he was planning a surprise celebration, maybe dinner at our favorite restaurant, or champagne, chilling at home. The Uber ride from the airport took 45 minutes, and I spent it daydreaming about a quiet weekend with Mark, maybe finally reconnecting after months of tension. But as we turned onto our street, my stomach dropped. Our driveway, usually containing just our two cars, was packed with vehicles I recognized all too well. Kevin's beat-up van with band stickers covering the rust spots was parked crooked, blocking half the garage. Lisa's boyfriend, Tommy's motorcycle, leaned against my rose bushes, crushing the new blooms I had been nurturing. Two other cars I didn't recognize filled the remaining space, and someone had parked on our manicured lawn, leaving tire tracks in the grass I had just had professionally treated. The front door stood wide open despite the evening chill, and music blasted from inside, the bass reverberating through the neighborhood. I could see lights on in every room, shadows moving behind curtains that were usually drawn precisely. My hands shook as I paid the driver and grabbed my suitcase, each step toward the house filling me with more dread. The living room hit me first. Our carefully curated space, with its neutral palette and carefully selected art pieces, looked like a tornado had struck. Kevin sprawled across our cream leather sofa with his dirty boots still on, strumming his guitar, while beer bottles accumulated on my glass coffee table without coasters. The bottles were leaving rings on the surface I religiously maintained. Our throw pillows were scattered on the floor, and someone had moved our accent chairs to create a makeshift performance space. Sheet music and fast food wrappers covered every surface. In the kitchen, Tommy stood at my 6-burner stove, using my expensive copper cookware to make what looked like spaghetti sauce, splattering red liquid across the white subway tile backsplash. He wore no shirt, just ratty jeans, and was using my wooden spoons I had bought in Italy as drumsticks between stirring. The granite counters were covered with grocery bags, most containing junk food and beer, nothing from my carefully planned organic grocery list. My meal prep containers for the week had been emptied and discarded in the sink. The dining room made my heart sink further. Dorothy had completely rearranged my furniture, pushing the mahogany table against the wall to make room for George's recliner from their old house. She was hanging what looked like family photos over my contemporary art pieces, using nails that were undoubtedly leaving holes in my freshly painted walls. George sat in his recliner, watching a portable television they had set up, where my buffet used to be, the volume competing with Kevin's guitar and the kitchen chaos. Mark appeared from the hallway, casual as could be, in sweatpants and a stained t-shirt I had tried to throw away multiple times. His face lit up with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, you're back early." He said it like an accusation rather than a welcome. "What is everyone doing here?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "They needed a place to stay." He shrugged, as if his entire family moving into our home was as normal as ordering pizza. I demanded he explain immediately, but he just waved me off, saying we could talk later and I should go freshen up from my trip. That's when I made the mistake of going to our bedroom. The walk down the hallway revealed more invasion. The guest bathroom had been destroyed with wet towels on the floor, toiletries scattered across the counter, and someone had used my expensive face masks, leaving the empty packets in the sink. The hall closet where I kept linens was ransacked, sheets and towels pulled out and discarded. Our master bedroom door was open, and I could smell Dorothy's suffocating perfume before I even entered. My walk-in closet doors stood open, and there, hanging among my carefully organized work clothes, were Dorothy's gaudy floral dresses and outdated suits. Her shoes were piled on the floor where my boots should be. She had moved my jewelry box to make room for her own, and several of my necklaces were tangled on the dresser. My vanity was covered with her makeup and medications prescription bottles with her name claiming the space where my perfumes lived. The guest rooms told similar stories. Kevin had taken over the first one, his guitar equipment filling every corner, amplifiers stacked against walls and cables snaking across the floor like trip hazards. Dirty laundry overflowed from a basket, and the smell of marijuana was barely concealed by cheap air freshener. Pizza boxes were stacked on the nightstand, and he had hung band posters with tape on the walls. Lisa and Tommy occupied the second guest room, which looked like a boutique had exploded. Shopping bags from expensive stores covered the bed tags still attached to clothes that cost more than most people's rent. Lisa's makeup collection had overtaken the dresser, and Tommy's questionable belongings were scattered throughout, including what looked like drug paraphernalia poorly hidden under magazines. They had pushed the bed against the window, blocking the emergency exit. But the true betrayal waited in my home office. The space where I conducted video calls with international clients, where I had spent countless hours building my career, had been converted into George's workshop. My desk was pushed into a corner, important papers scattered and stained with coffee rings. Tools covered the surface where my computer should be, and sawdust coated everything. He had set up a workbench in the center of the room, and wood shavings littered the carpet. My filing cabinets were inaccessible, blocked by lumber and power tools. The garage visible through the window was packed floor to ceiling with furniture I recognized from Mark's parents' house. Old couches, dated dining sets, boxes labeled with Dorothy's handwriting, all crammed into the space where our cars should be. They had literally moved their entire house into ours. I found Mark in the kitchen laughing with Tommy about something on his phone. The rage that had been building exploded. "How long has this been planned? Why didn't you discuss this with me?" Mark's face shifted to defensive immediately. "It just happened. They had an emergency. You weren't here and decisions had to be made. What emergency requires moving your entire family into our home without telling me?" That's when the full truth came out in pieces, each revelation worse than the last. His parents had lost their house, but not to any normal circumstance. George had developed a gambling problem, betting on sports through illegal bookies. They had remortgaged their house 3 times to cover debts, and finally lost it all. They had been living in their car for 2 days before Mark invited them. Kevin had been evicted from his apartment for not paying rent for 6 months while he focused on his music. He had been couch surfing with various friends who had all eventually kicked him out for stealing or bringing drama to their homes. Lisa and Tommy's situation was even worse. They were fleeing drug charges in Arizona and needed to lay low. Tommy had outstanding warrants, and Lisa was on probation. They couldn't rent anywhere legitimate because of their records and had been staying in motels paid for with stolen credit cards. "And you brought criminals into our home." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "They're family," Mark shouted, drawing everyone's attention. "Family helps family. That's what real families do. But you wouldn't understand that because you're an only child who thinks money solves everything." The accusation stung, but I held my ground. "This is our home, not a halfway house or a shelter. They need to leave by the end of the month." That's when Mark revealed more financial betrayals. He had already promised them they didn't need to pay rent. He expected me to cover all the increased utility bills, the extra food costs, even their personal expenses. He had given them our emergency credit card for necessities, which Lisa had already used for her shopping spree. He had promised Kevin the garage could be converted to a recording studio for his band to practice. He had told his parents they could stay indefinitely, that this was their retirement solution. I stood my ground. "They leave by month's end. or I file for divorce." The words hung in the air for a moment before Mark exploded. "You're such a selfish bitch." The venom in his voice shocked even me after 5 years of marriage. "You've never accepted my family. You think you're better than us because you make more money. You're cold-hearted, materialistic, and care more about your precious house than human beings." His family had gathered by this point, watching like it was entertainment. Dorothy seized her moment. "I told you she wasn't good enough for you, Mark. A real woman would support her husband's family without question. Family is everything, and she clearly doesn't understand that." Kevin added his mockery. "Princess can't share her castle. Must be nice to be so rich you can throw family on the street." Lisa turned on the waterworks, sobbing dramatically. "We have nowhere else to go. How can you be so cruel? We're trying to get back on our feet and you want to destroy our chances." Mark continued his tirade. "You never wanted my family around. You've been trying to isolate me since day one. A real wife would support her husband, not make ultimatums. You care more about your image in this house than our marriage." The gang mentality was overwhelming all of them against me and my own home. But I wouldn't back down. A real husband would have discussed this with his wife before moving people in. A real man wouldn't make unilateral decisions about our shared life. Mark's face turned red. Maybe I should have married someone who understands family values. They stay, or I leave. Your choice. I looked him straight in the eye. Then you leave. The next 3 days descended into a living nightmare that tested every ounce of my patience and sanity. Saturday morning, I woke at 5:30 as always for my morning run, only to find the bathroom occupied by Tommy, who stayed in there for 45 minutes doing God knows what. When I finally got in, my expensive shampoo was nearly empty, my towels were soaking wet on the floor, and someone had used my toothbrush. My skincare products were opened and contaminated fingerprints all over my serums and moisturizers. Trying to make breakfast became impossible. The kitchen was destroyed from the night before, dishes piled high, food stuck to every surface. My meal prep containers were nowhere to be found, likely thrown away. Dorothy was already there, reorganizing my cabinets again, throwing away my specialty ingredients, because she didn't recognize them. She tossed my protein powder, calling it unnecessary chemicals, throughout my organic vegetables, saying they looked weird, and replaced everything with processed junk food. When I protested, she accused me of being controlling and neurotic about food. Working from home, which I did every Monday and Friday, became impossible. Kevin started band practice at 10 in the morning, the noise reverberating through the walls. I had an important video call with Japanese clients, and the background noise was so loud they asked if everything was okay. I tried to move to my office, but George was using power tools cutting wood for some project. The sawdust triggered my allergies, and I spent the call sneezing and apologizing. My credibility with clients was crumbling in real time. Personal items started disappearing. My iPad vanished from the living room, later found in Lisa's room, where she was using it to browse shopping sites. My noise-canceling headphones disappeared entirely, and Kevin claimed he had no idea where they went despite me seeing them in his room. My work laptop charger was taken, and when I found it, Tommy was using it for his ancient computer, claiming all chargers were the same. My grandmother's pearl necklace went missing from my jewelry box, and though I couldn't prove it, Lisa was suddenly wearing similar earrings. The bills were shocking. Our water bill tripled, with everyone taking multiple long showers daily. The electricity usage skyrocketed, with every light left on multiple devices charging Kevin's amplifiers running constantly. The internet slowed to a crawl, with everyone streaming simultaneously. Food disappeared as fast as I could buy it. I bought groceries on Sunday, and by Monday evening everything was gone. They ate meals meant to last me a week in a single day. Specific incidents piled up, each worse than the last. Dorothy decided to help by doing laundry, mixing all my clothes together, ruining my silk blouses and shrinking my wool sweaters. She bleached my black work dress, claiming it looked dingy. When I confronted her, she cried to Mark about how I didn't appreciate her help, and he took her side, saying I should be grateful she was trying. Kevin's midnight band practices became a nightly occurrence. He invited his bandmates over without asking, and they would play until 3 or 4 in the morning. Neighbors started complaining, and I received a warning from the HOA about noise violations. When I tried to address it with Kevin, he called me a creativity killer and said I was jealous of his artistic expression. Mark defended him, saying family supports each other's dreams. Tommy's friends were the scariest addition. Sketchy people started showing up at all hours, conducting quick exchanges at our front door that were obviously drug deals. Cars would idle outside, people would walk up, quick handshakes would happen, and they would leave. I felt unsafe in my own home and told Mark we could have police raiding our house. He accused me of being paranoid and judgmental, saying I was assuming the worst about Tommy without evidence. Lisa's spending spree continued on our emergency credit card. She bought designer handbags, shoes, clothes, all while claiming they were necessities for job interviews she never attended. When the credit card statement arrived showing $8,000 in charges over 3 days, I immediately canceled it. Mark was furious, saying I was sabotaging his family's chance to get back on their feet. He actually used the phrase financial abuse when I cut off access to my own money. George's workshop project turned destructive. He accidentally put a hole in the wall trying to move lumber. He spilled wood stain on the carpet, leaving a permanent mark. His sawing at odd hours disturbed my sleep and work. When he broke my printer trying to move it, he shrugged it off as no big deal, saying I probably had insurance. The complete lack of respect for my property was astounding. The gaslighting from Mark intensified daily. When I showed him the damage to the house, he said I was being dramatic. When I pointed out the financial drain, he accused me of being obsessed with money. When I mentioned the noise complaints from neighbors, he said I cared more about what others thought than my own family. Every concern was dismissed, minimized, or turned back on me as a character flaw. He stopped sleeping in our bedroom, claiming my negativity was affecting his sleep. He would stay up late with his family, drinking and laughing, making me feel like an outsider in my own home. They would have family dinners without telling me, using my food to cook elaborate meals while I ate takeout in my bedroom. The isolation tactic was obvious but effective, making me question if I was the problem. The final straw came Thursday evening. I had spent weeks preparing for an important client dinner at our home scheduled for that Friday. This was a Japanese executive team considering a $20 million contract with our firm. I had hired caterers, arranged for professional cleaning, and carefully planned every detail. The house needed to be immaculate, sophisticated, a reflection of our company's professionalism. I came home Thursday at noon to oversee preparations, only to walk into absolute chaos. The house was trashed beyond anything I had seen before. Kevin had invited his entire band and their friends for an impromptu party. At least 30 people were in my home, drinking, smoking, destroying everything they touched. Red wine was spilled on my cream carpet, cigarette burns marked my leather furniture, and someone had broken my television trying to connect gaming equipment. The kitchen was unusable, every surface covered with empty bottles, half-eaten food, and unidentifiable stains. The bathroom had been vomited in and not cleaned. My dining room table was being used for beer pong, the surface scratched and damaged. But the worst discovery was my office. Someone had spilled an entire bottle of beer on my desk, destroying months of work, including the printed contracts for the Japanese clients. My computer was soaked and wouldn't turn on. I found Mark in the backyard, drunk and laughing with Kevin's friends around our fire pit, which they had filled with what looked like our outdoor furniture cushions, burning them for entertainment. When he saw me, he raised his beer in a mock toast. Look who decided to join the party. I was beyond words. My career, my home, my life was being systematically destroyed. I stood there shaking with rage while Mark and his family laughed. Dorothy stumbled over drunk herself, slurring that I needed to loosen up. Lisa was making out with Tommy on my couch while strangers took pictures. George was passed out in his recliner, oblivious to the destruction. "This ends now," I managed to say. "Everyone out or I call the police." Mark stood up, swaying slightly. "You wouldn't dare. These are my guests in my house." "Your house?" I laughed bitterly. "Your name isn't on the deed, Mark. This is my house and you're all trespassing." The party stopped, everyone watching. Mark's face went from drunk confidence to rage. Maybe I chose the wrong wife. Maybe I should have picked someone who understands what family means. Then choose them, I said. I'm done. You have 24 hours to get them out, or I'll have you all arrested for trespassing and destruction of property. The room erupted with his family's protests and insults. Dorothy called me a heartless witch. Kevin threatened to expose personal information about me online. Lisa screamed that I was ruining her life. Tommy made vague threats about knowing where I worked. But I walked past them all, went to our bedroom, and started packing. As I packed, they continued their taunts through the door. Mark never came to apologize or discuss. He was too busy consoling his family, promising them I didn't mean it, that I would come around. I could hear him saying I always threw tantrums, but never followed through. That was his biggest mistake, underestimating my resolve. I packed my important documents, jewelry, work clothes, and personal items that couldn't be replaced. I took photos of all the damage, recorded videos of the party and destruction. I grabbed my passport, birth certificate, and financial documents from the safe. As I wheeled my suitcases through the house, his family jeered and mocked me. Good riddance, Dorothy spat. Mark deserves better than a cold fish like you. Kevin played a mocking goodbye song on his guitar. Lisa Fake cried about being thrown into the street. George had woken up and just shook his head like I was being ridiculous. Tommy filmed everything on his phone, probably for social media mockery later. Mark stood with his arms crossed, smirking fully, believing I would be back by morning, that I had nowhere else to go and no spine to follow through. You've made your choice, I said to Mark as I stood at the door. I hope they're worth losing everything. You'll be back, he slurred confidently. You always come back. I looked him straight in the eye. Not this time. The hotel room was a blessed sanctuary of silence and cleanliness. I checked into an extended stay suite downtown, finally able to breathe without the chaos surrounding me. That first night alone, I sat in the pristine bathroom and cried, not from sadness, but from relief and rage. 5 years of my life had been wasted on someone who valued me less than his toxic family. But tears wouldn't solve anything, and by morning I was ready to fight. My first call was to Rachel, my friend from law school, who had become a successful divorce attorney. She met me for breakfast, and I laid out everything, showing her the videos and photos I had taken. Her expression grew increasingly shocked and then determined. Anna, this is beyond marital problems. This is destruction of property, potential identity theft, and criminal trespassing. You have grounds for an immediate restraining order. We spent the morning documenting everything. Rachel was thorough, having me write down every incident, every threat, every dollar spent. She pulled property records confirming the house was solely in my name, purchased before marriage with my inheritance from my grandfather. She reviewed our prenuptial agreement, which Mark had fought against but eventually signed, protecting my premarital assets. She examined our bank accounts, noting that Mark had no access to my primary accounts, only the joint account I kept deliberately limited. The tenant rights research revealed interesting facts. Since Mark's family had been there less than a week with no lease agreement and no mail delivered, they had no tenant rights. They were guests at best, trespassers at worst. The eviction process would be clean and legal. Rachel prepared the paperwork that day, including a formal notice to vacate within 48 hours and a restraining order petition based on the threats and property damage. That afternoon, I met with my financial advisor and made crucial changes. I moved the majority of my savings to new accounts Mark didn't know existed. I canceled every credit card he had access to, including the ones I hadn't known he had opened using my information. I removed him as beneficiary from my life insurance and retirement accounts, replacing him with my cousin. I changed the passwords on every investment account and removed his authorization for any financial decisions. The house insurance claim was filed with extensive documentation. The adjuster was shocked at the deliberate destruction and confirmed coverage for most damages, though it would take weeks to process. I hired a professional cleaning crew and contractor to assess the full extent of repairs needed, their estimate reaching $40,000 for restoration. Every receipt was saved, every estimate documented for the divorce proceedings. I called a locksmith and scheduled them for the following Tuesday after the legal eviction deadline would pass. I upgraded to smart locks that could be controlled from my phone with cameras integrated. I hired a security company to install a comprehensive system with cameras covering every angle of the property. No one would ever invade my space again without consequences. For 4 days, I maintained complete radio silence despite the escalating messages. Friday morning, Mark texted casually asking when I was coming back. By Friday night, his tone shifted to anger, demanding I stop being childish. Saturday brought bargaining attempts promising they would be neater, quieter, more respectful. Sunday was manipulation day with messages about how hurt his family was, how I was breaking Dorothy's heart, how Kevin was having anxiety attacks, how Lisa was crying constantly. I ignored everything, focusing on my work and legal preparations. The client dinner had been rescheduled and relocated to a restaurant, and miraculously, we still secured the contract, though my reputation took a hit. My boss was understanding when I explained the situation in vague terms, even offering me time off to handle personal matters. I declined, needing work to keep me focused and stable. Monday arrived with Mark's first phone call, which I let go to voicemail. His message was angry, accusing me of abandoning my responsibilities, of being cruel to people in need. 2 hours later, another call, this time pleading, saying we could work it out. By evening, the calls were coming every 30 minutes, each more desperate. I documented them all but never responded. Tuesday morning at 6, Mark's panic truly set in. His call was frantic. "Anna, everything's falling apart. Please, you have to come home." I answered this one. "What's happening, Mark?" "The power's been shut off. The electricity company says the bill wasn't paid, but I told them you handle that. They won't turn it back on without payment and proof of residence, and I'm not on the account." "That's unfortunate," I replied flatly. "Mom is having a meltdown without air conditioning. Kevin's equipment is all dead and he has a gig this weekend. Lisa's freaking out because she can't charge her phone or use her hair tools. Dad's tools all need power and the food in the fridge is spoiling. Sounds like you should have thought about that before making unilateral decisions about our living situation." His voice cracked. "Tommy got arrested last night. The cops showed up looking for him, something about violating parole by leaving Arizona. Lisa's hysterical and we need bail money. Not my problem, Mark." The desperation peaked. "My family is fighting constantly. Mom blames me for you leaving. Kevin says I'm an idiot who lost the golden goose. Dad won't even talk to me. Lisa says her life is ruined because of me. Please, I'm begging you. Come home and we can fix this. You made your choice, Mark. You chose them over me, our marriage, our life together. Now live with that choice. Please, Anna. I need you. I can't do this without you. They're driving me crazy. Mom won't stop criticizing everything. Kevin's music is awful, and he practices constantly. Lisa and Tommy's drama is exhausting. Dad's depression is dragging everyone down. I made a mistake, multiple mistakes. I corrected. And now you're facing consequences. I'll make them leave. Today, right now, if you come back too late, Mark. Legal eviction papers will be served tomorrow. You all have 48 hours to vacate my property." The silence was deafening before he exploded. "You can't do this. This is my home too." "Actually, it's not. The house is in my name, only purchased before our marriage. You have no legal claim to it. My attorney will explain everything when she arrives with the sheriff tomorrow. You planned this. You've been waiting for an excuse to leave me." "No, Mark, you planned this. You moved your entire family into my home without my consent. You gave them access to my finances without permission. You let them destroy my property and my career. You chose them repeatedly over me. I'm just responding to your choices." His tone shifted to threatening. "I'll fight you on everything. I'll take half of everything you own. I'll destroy your reputation. Good luck with that. We have a prenup, remember? The one you called unnecessary but signed anyway. And as for reputation, I have videos of the destruction recordings of threats and documentation of everything. Who do you think looks worse here?" The call ended with him screaming obscenities before I hung up. Within an hour, Dorothy was calling from her phone, which I didn't answer. Kevin tried next, then Lisa. I blocked them all. The only communication would now be through legal channels. Wednesday morning at 8 sharp, I arrived at my house with Sheriff Davidson, Rachel the locksmith, and a moving crew. The security company was scheduled for noon. As we pulled up, I could see the family clustered on the front porch, clearly having been warned somehow. Mark stood in front like he was protecting them, but his bravado crumbled when he saw the sheriff. Rachel stepped forward with the documents. Mr. Harrison, Mrs. Dorothy Harrison, Mr. Kevin Harrison, Ms. Lisa Harrison, and Mr. Thomas Chen. You are being served with a legal notice to vacate these premises within 48 hours. Failure to comply will result in forcible removal and criminal trespassing charges. Dorothy's mouth fell open. She can't do this. We're family. Sheriff Davidson spoke calmly but firmly. Ma'am, this property belongs solely to Ms. Reynolds. She has every legal right to determine who resides here. I suggest you begin packing immediately. Mark tried one last manipulation. Anna, please can we talk privately? Just 5 minutes. All communication goes through my attorney, I said, not even looking at him. The locksmith began working on the front door while the family watched in shock. Lisa started crying, but they were angry tears now. This is illegal. We have rights. Rachel pulled out her phone showing documentation. Actually, you don't. You've been here less than 30 days, have no lease, receive no mail here, and have no proof of tenancy. You're guests who have overstayed their welcome. Kevin stepped forward aggressively, and the sheriff moved between us. I'd be very careful, young man. Ms. Reynolds has documented threats you've made. Any aggressive action will result in immediate arrest. George finally spoke, his voice quiet. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my concern, I replied. You should have thought about that before losing your house gambling, before moving in without permission, before destroying my property. Tommy had been silent, probably worried about his own legal issues. He started edging toward his motorcycle, but the sheriff noticed. Mr. Chen, you'll want to stick around. There may be questions about some activities that have been reported at this address. The next 2 hours were controlled chaos. The moving crew helped me remove my belongings while the family was forced to begin packing. Dorothy alternated between sobbing and screaming at Mark. You promised this would work. You said she would accept it. You've ruined everything. Kevin was on his phone desperately trying to find friends to stay with, but apparently he had burned every bridge. His expensive equipment would have to go into storage he couldn't afford. Lisa was having a complete meltdown, throwing things into bags while cursing everyone. Tommy had disappeared the moment the sheriff was distracted, leaving Lisa to deal with everything alone. The revelations came fast as their desperation grew. Mark finally admitted the truth in front of everyone, probably hoping for sympathy. I never really loved her, I just needed stability. Mom told me to find someone with money, and Anna was perfect. The plan was always to get her house and have you all move in eventually. Dorothy didn't deny it. We're his family. We deserve to be taken care of. She has all this money she doesn't even need. Kevin added his own confession. Mark promised me the garage for my studio permanently. Said once they were married longer, he could get his name on the deed. Lisa sobbed out her part. He said she was too uptight to have kids, so we'd be his real family here. Each word was another nail in the coffin of any possible reconciliation. Rachel was recording everything on her phone for the divorce proceedings. The sheriff took notes about the admission of conspiracy to commit fraud. The moving crew worked faster, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Mark turned on his family as reality hit. This is all your fault. If you hadn't all been so obvious, so greedy, she might not have noticed, Mom. You just had to redecorate everything immediately. Kevin, you couldn't wait even a week to start your stupid band practices. Lisa, $8,000 in 3 days. How stupid are you? The family turned on each other completely. Dorothy slapped Mark, screaming that he was a failure who couldn't even control his wife. Kevin shoved Mark, saying he was tired of his promises that never materialized. Lisa threw a vase at Dorothy, blaming her for raising such useless sons. George just sat on the porch steps with his head in his hands, finally understanding the consequences of his gambling addiction. As I carried out the last of my essential items, Mark made one final attempt. Anna, please. I'll go to counseling. I'll cut them off. I'll do anything. I'm sorry I stopped and looked at him one last time. No, you're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there are consequences. You're sorry your plan didn't work. But you're not sorry for betraying me, for using me, for trying to steal from me. That's not true. I did love you. No, Mark. You loved what I could provide. You loved the lifestyle, the security, the house. But you never loved me. If you had, you would have protected me from this, not orchestrated it. The locksmith finished installing the new locks, and I held the only keys. The security company arrived to begin their installation. The cleaning crew I had hired was waiting to start as soon as everyone was out. My home would be mine again, but the scars of this betrayal would take much longer to heal. As we prepared to leave them to their packing, police cars pulled up. Apparently, Tommy's abandoned motorcycle had been reported stolen, and there were questions about drug activity at this address. The sheriff had called it in. More consequences for their choices were arriving by the minute. The last image I had was the family arguing on the lawn, their belongings scattered around them, police officers taking statements, and Mark sitting on the porch steps with his head in his hands, finally understanding that he had lost everything in his gamble to take everything from me. 6 months have passed since that chaotic eviction day, and my life has transformed in ways I never could have imagined when I was trapped in that toxic marriage. The divorce was finalized last month, and thanks to our prenuptial agreement and Mark's recorded admissions of fraud, he walked away with essentially nothing except his personal belongings and the debt he had hidden from me. Rachel was brilliant in court, presenting evidence of financial abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The judge was particularly unsympathetic when he heard how Mark's family had conspired to take my home. The house sold within 3 weeks of listing for well above asking price. Even with the $40,000 in repairs, I made a substantial profit. The buyers were a young family who fell in love with the space, and I felt good knowing it would be filled with genuine love instead of manipulation and greed. I used the proceeds to purchase a stunning penthouse downtown, complete with state-of-the-art security and a concierge who ensures no unwanted visitors ever make it past the lobby. My career has soared since removing the constant drain of Mark's chaos. The Japanese clients we secured became our firm's largest account, and I was promoted to executive vice president with a corner office and a salary that would make Mark weep. My boss mentioned that I seemed like a different person, more confident, more focused, more genuinely happy. She was right. Without the constant gaslighting and emotional manipulation, I remembered who I was before Mark diminished me. The therapy journey has been enlightening and sometimes painful. Dr. Martinez helped me recognize the patterns of codependency that made me vulnerable to someone like Mark. We traced it back to my childhood, where achievement and providing for others earned love and approval. I learned about narcissistic abuse patterns, how Mark had systematically isolated me from friends, made me question my judgment, and used my strengths against me. The trauma bonding was real, and breaking it required months of hard work. I discovered so many red flags I had ignored or rationalized away. The way Mark never celebrated my successes but expected fanfare for his minimal efforts. How he would sulk when I received recognition at work, claiming I was making him feel inferior. The subtle ways he undermined my confidence while appearing supportive. The financial exploitation disguised as partnership. The emotional manipulation presented as love. Through mutual friends, I learned about Mark's current situation, though I never asked for updates. He was living in Kevin's van after wearing out his welcome with various friends. His family had completely fractured after the eviction. Dorothy and George divorced when she discovered he had gambled away their retirement savings as well. She moved in with her sister in Nebraska, who apparently despised Mark and banned him from visiting. George entered gambling addiction treatment, but only after hitting absolute rock bottom living in a shelter. Kevin's music career never materialized, shocking no one. He was working part-time at a music store, barely making minimum wage, and sleeping on couches when not in the van with Mark. His expensive equipment was sold piece by piece for rent money. The last anyone heard, He was considering joining the military just for stable housing and food. Lisa's situation was equally pathetic. After Tommy was extradited to Arizona to face charges, she discovered she was pregnant. With no money, no job skills, and a criminal record from her own involvement with Tommy's activities, she was living in a halfway house for pregnant women. The designer clothes and bags she bought on my credit card were sold for a fraction of their cost just to buy necessities. Mark sent emails for months cycling through the stages of grief repeatedly. Denial that the divorce was really happening, anger at being exposed and left with nothing, bargaining with promises of change and therapy he would never actually pursue. Depression when he realized I wasn't responding. He never quite reached acceptance, still occasionally sending messages declaring his love or his hatred depending on his mood and sobriety level. I had those emails filtered straight to a folder my attorney monitored in case they escalated to threats requiring legal action. They did once when Mark got drunk and sent a series of messages threatening to expose intimate photos. Rachel shut that down immediately with a cease and desist order and reminder that revenge porn was a felony. He never tried again. My personal growth has been remarkable. I joined a hiking club and rediscovered my love of nature that Mark always mocked as boring. I took up pottery classes, finding peace in creating something beautiful with my hands. I traveled solo to Japan to meet our clients in person, something Mark would have sulked about or insisted on joining to make it about him. I reconnected with friends I had unconsciously distanced during my marriage, apologizing for my absence and rebuilding those precious relationships. The biggest surprise has been James. We met at a charity fundraiser for domestic violence survivors, where I was sharing my story to help other women recognize the signs of financial and emotional abuse. He approached me afterward not to hit on me, but to thank me for my honesty. His sister had been in a similar situation, and hearing my story helped him understand what she went through. We became friends first, bonding over hiking trails and coffee conversations about everything except romance. James was patient, understanding that I needed to heal and rebuild trust. He celebrated my promotion with genuine joy, no trace of jealousy or competitiveness. He encouraged my independence, never trying to solve my problems, but supporting me as I solved them myself. When I had panic attacks about trusting again, he gave me space while assuring me he wasn't going anywhere. Our relationship developed, slowly built on mutual respect and genuine affection. James has his own successful career as an architect, his own home, his own life, that complement mine without consuming it. He introduced me to his family gradually, and they were everything Mark's family wasn't. They were warm but respectful, close, but not enmeshed, supportive, but not enabling. His mother pulled me aside once and said she had never seen James so happy and stable, that I brought out the best in him. It was the opposite of Dorothy's constant criticism and manipulation. The lessons learned from this experience have been invaluable. I learned that when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Mark showed me he was selfish when he quit jobs without discussion. He showed me he was manipulative when he turned my concerns into character flaws. He showed me he valued his family over our marriage every time he failed to set boundaries. I just refused to see it, making excuses and hoping he would change. I learned that love should not require you to sacrifice your dignity, safety, or financial security. Real love protects, supports, and celebrates you. It doesn't diminish you to feel bigger. It doesn't take everything while giving nothing. It doesn't choose others over you repeatedly and expect forgiveness without change. I learned the importance of maintaining financial independence even in marriage. My separate accounts and prenuptial agreement saved me from complete destruction. Too many women lose everything because they trusted completely and protected nothing. Love and legal protection are not mutually exclusive. I learned that family is not an excuse for boundary violations. Being related to someone doesn't give them the right to destroy your life. You can love family members while still protecting yourself from their toxic behaviors. Enabling isn't love. It's weakness disguised as compassion. Most importantly, I learned my own worth. I deserved a partner who chose me first, always. I deserved respect for my contributions, my career, my dreams. I deserved peace in my own home, safety in my own marriage, honesty from my life partner. I deserve to be loved for who I am, not what I could provide. The nightmares have mostly stopped now. I no longer wake up in panic thinking I hear Kevin's guitar or Dorothy's criticism. I don't check my bank accounts obsessively fearing unauthorized charges. I don't second-guess every decision wondering if I'm being selfish or unreasonable. The healing isn't complete, may never be entirely, but I'm stronger for having survived and escaped. Sometimes I think about the woman I was a year ago, exhausted from carrying the entire financial load, walking on eggshells, to avoid Mark's moods, accepting less than I deserved because I believed it was love. I want to go back and shake her, tell her she's worth more, that real love doesn't feel like drowning. But she had to learn it herself the hard way to truly understand and never accept it again. To anyone watching who sees themselves in my story, who recognizes the red flags I ignored, the manipulation I endured, the betrayal I survived, please know that you deserve better. You deserve a partner who chooses you, who protects your shared life from outside intrusion, who contributes equally to your relationship. You deserve peace, respect, and genuine love. Don't wait until your home is invaded, your finances drained, your spirit nearly broken. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Set boundaries and enforce them. Protect yourself legally and financially. And never ever let anyone convince you that self-preservation is selfishness. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is love yourself enough to leave. If you found value in my story, if it opened your eyes to patterns in your own relationship, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment about your own experiences with boundary violations or toxic in-laws. Like this video if it resonated with you, and subscribe for more stories of survival and triumph. Together we can recognize the signs, escape the cycles, and build lives filled with genuine love and respect. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, you are worthy of a love that chooses you first always.